Hi everybody, it's Jessie. It is the last day of August, 2012. I am now 2 years post-op. I am over 2 years post-op. It has been a tumultuous year, I have to say. I have been out of work since Valentine's Day, pretty much. Since the end of Valentine's Day week. I unfortunately passed out at work after not being able to eat most of the day. I had eaten at like 6:30 in the morning and then didn't get a break. I was a teacher in a classroom, and unfortunately Valentine's Day, apparently a lot of other teachers wanted to call out. So we were extremely short-staffed and I did not get a chance to eat. So sadly I blacked out for about 15 minutes. Because of how I blacked out, unfortunately, though, there was some question as to what was going on, and I needed to have further tests done. Unfortunately, at my school, they just thought I fell asleep because I work with preschoolers, and they were sleeping, and I was sitting up in a chair. I came to in the middle of the whole experience, and apparently, like, one eye fluttered, and I talked a little bit, like, muttered, but I don't remember any of it. I totally have, like, no recollection other than, like, XYZ happened, and then all of a sudden I woke up and, like, it came to, rather, and everything else was going on around me, and I had no idea what happened in that span of time. I did go see my doctor right after, and everything seemed to be okay, but they wanted to do major tests. So between February and really up until like June, I've had the gamut of tests. I've had EEGs, EKGs, I had an echocardiogram, I've had stress tests, I wore a sugar monitor, I wore a heart monitor, I've done pretty much the gamut. I've had sugar crashes at least like 3 to 4 a month since, and they thought I had something called non-insulin pancreatogenic hypoglycemic syndrome, which is what they sort of diagnosed me with last spring. They said, we think you have this. It's like a side effect of the gastric bypass. This would understand why every once in a while I would shake and sweat and all of a sudden have like a sugar crash, and we couldn't figure out why or what was causing it. So when this happened, they were like, okay, this is definitely what it's got to be. You need to be able to take a break. Unfortunately, I live in the state of New Jersey, and New Jersey no longer requires by law that after working 6 to 8 hours or whatever the cutoff is, that 4 hours, that they need to allow you to have a break unless you have some kind of medical notice. So I am finally cleared to go back to work, but I have a medical note that says must be provided with a midday lunch break to maintain, myself sugar-wise, and just because I had a gastric bypass too. At the time that this happened, it was a very stressful time. We were going to be under review for 2 different things, for an AC accreditation and for a federal Head Start review. And so I was very stressed out. I was also dealing with 2 children that were very high needs. And, being in a situation, not having a break, not being able to eat, it just was too much, and I passed out. I'm happy to say that, all the tests came out really good, which is good, so we know that there's no real big problems with my heart or anything like that. They did try to put me on some kind of sugar medicine to sort of prolong the sugar absorption to make it not drop so dramatically. But unfortunately, I had a side effect from the first set of sugar medicine. They put me on something called Arbocros, and I started retaining water in my legs, and I had about 15 pounds of water in my body at one point. So they took me off that, and they put me on something called Glycet, which is in the same drug family. But it really didn't seem to do any major help. So I've been off the sugar medicine for quite some time. I've been just monitoring my diet. I went to a diabetes education center, worked with a nutritionist, tried to incorporate more carbs into my diet, more complex carbs, more whole grain things, because I really wasn't, gastric bypass, they're telling you, keep your carbs down to a minimum, more protein, more vegetables and fruit, keep your sugar to a minimum, that kind of thing. But because I was having problems keeping my sugar high, like I was, not really having any kind of dumping syndrome when I had something that was too sweet. And if anything, my sugar was dropping, so I had been eating things that were, higher on the sugar thing. I have to say, learning more about the glycemic index and learning about how sugar affects your body, I've definitely come off with a lot more information, and I would definitely suggest everybody look into that more. I would think 2 years post-op, my body would be more balanced, but I definitely seem to be more sensitive now to things that are higher in sugar. And if I'm going to have something sweet, I need to definitely balance it out with like the protein and the carb kind of thing. But I seem to be doing well, physically anyway. Trying to pick up the pieces, find a new job, get my unemployment. It's tough. The economy's not in a good place, and my position, they're probably going to try to pay me half the price. So we'll see what happens. But I hope everybody's doing well out there. I would suggest to anyone who's having any kind of sugar issues to really go to a couple endocrinologists. The one that I went to see, I'm really not necessarily pleased with, and I will probably go see another one. I did get some answers with the polycystic ovarian syndrome thing, that one of my ovaries does have cysts on it, and so I do have some PCOS going on, which could be contributing to the sugar too. So I will be seeing a reproductive endocrinologist hopefully soon. So who knows, they might put me on metformin or one of those other drugs. But my weight has definitely come to a point where as of Christmas I was probably around 220. I dropped down to 205 around February, which is when I passed out. So obviously I was, lower on the weight scale, high stress, not eating enough, and that obviously probably had a factor in it. I seem to be up again a little bit, but I seem to bounce each month depending on my cycle and stuff. But I am more regular, which is great in the cycle department. I don't know if it's TMI for the guys out there, but for women, it's with the weight loss and having to deal with these things, it's a huge plus. So in that respect, I'm happy. But definitely trying to work on getting myself together. I do need to exercise more and not just use this pretty exercise bike behind me for decoration or, a hanger. Trying to get out there and do more. But because of the whole sugar thing, they were like, don't go crazy because that can make your sugar drop and then you could pass out. And so they're really sort of apprehensive about me being too physical and doing things. But I've been hiking since and exercising. The weather's been super hot in New Jersey, sweat my butt off, not nearly as cold as I used to be. So definitely balancing out. I did see my gastric bypass doctor, and he did say, you're going to have to watch what you eat more and see, because now you're kind of in regular land. Sometimes you eat something that's really good for you and you're healthier and you're down weight, and sometimes you eat crap and you're obviously going to gain a couple pounds. So I really kind of need to step it up and really watch more, and I have been. My weight is definitely keeps going down and whatnot. I just need to watch and not eat things that are too bad for me. So I'm still kind of learning what's good and what's bad, testing things out, journaling as much as I can, and testing my sugar if I feel like I'm crashing. Things that definitely seem to set me off, I think, are things that are definitely higher in the sweet thing. Sangria from restaurants seems to be a no-no. Unless it's, like not with soda and it really is wine sangria and not, pumped with other things. But it seems to me if I balance those things out with a good amount of protein, it seems to be okay. So I'm still trying to watch the sugar thing as much as I can, but I'm not totally staying away from everything. Keeping it on the low end, eating a lot of Greek yogurt. That's like my biggest thing. A lot of chicken, trying to go back more to the vegetable kind of thing. It's definitely a give and take. It can be very frustrating. They were, kind of yelling at me like, eat more carbs, you're not eating enough bread, you're not eating enough pasta. And then I would eat that and then I would gain. And I was like, okay, I know you want me to have more carbs, you want me to sustain things longer, but I don't want to gain weight and I want to lose weight more and I want to be in Wonderland. But I have to say, I'm still close to that, and I haven't gained tremendously, which is good. But for, the past couple months, it's been a rough ride. It's been a, up and down kind of thing, and full of uncertainty. And hopefully now we're taking steps in the certainty way of things. So, but basically, if you're thinking about doing the gastric bypass, think very long and hard. When they bypass your intestines, you lose that valve from your stomach to your intestines that slowly dumps food and sugar and carbs and all kinds of things into your system. So that can cause you to crash if it's just dumping instantly into your system and not having time to process slowly. And that's where you can get into trouble. So I would definitely, I wouldn't steer any away from the gastric bypass, but I would definitely make sure you do your research and know what your body is like before you do it. Because if you run low, that could be a problem. Most people who have type 2, it's great for them. They end up not being on insulin and stuff like that. I must have always run low and we never knew that. So